You are listening to the Light Over Time podcast with David Sargent and Korey Bartos. What's up, bud?
Hey, what's going on?
Not much. What are you drinking today?
I'm drinking the same stuff I was drinking 2 episodes ago. The Ethiopia Gedeb Banco Gotiti. That nectarine goodness, dark chocolate stuff going on. It's really good. Chemexed it today.
Ah, nice. I played around a little bit yesterday with comparing the Chemex to the Kalita over at Evan's house.
Nice.
Today I'm drinking Factory Coffee's Banga Ethiopia, and it is quite good. I obviously you just saw my one post, but I just made 3 posts on Instagram because I'm incapable of not posting triptychs now. Well, I say now as though it hasn't been like that for like 2 years, but I really got this Kalita dialed in thanks to Madcap Coffee in Grand Rapids, and I gotta say, even without a scale and a proper gooseneck kettle today, it tastes delicious.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah.
I've been very much enjoying this Ethiopia, but I'm moving on. This is the last of it. I've got a bunch of Ethiopia Kambada, which you've had before. I'm very excited about having that back, and some Colombia Don Enrique, which I'm pretty sure I've sent to you before as well.
I've had it. It's quite good.
Yeah.
Cool. So this week we are talking about. I got a handful of news topics. There's some rumor topics, but again, we're gonna start with what you've been shooting this week. What have you been up to shooting, and maybe probably some coffee stuff?
Yeah, pretty much only coffee stuff, man. I remember a couple episodes ago where I was like, I need to get out for myself with the camera, and I seem to be incapable of allowing myself that time lately, which is a problem. But no, just mostly coffee stuff. I actually haven't even picked up the camera a whole lot in the last week. I did a little bit of product photography. After you showed me the stuff you were working on, I was like feeling good about it, and I went and I tried myself with what I had, and it just, I don't know, it didn't inspire me too much. So I'm sitting on some images. I do have some images I'll be releasing pretty soon of this process of me roasting, which is pretty cool. So the camera's set away. I took your advice, put it on the tripod. That's going to be great. But yeah, mostly coffee stuff. So I got a big old rolling cart that actually is a massive improvement on what I had before, what my roaster was set on, and some ventilation upgrades. So that's me.
Right on. Cool. My week was kind of hectic. Coworkers having twin boys this week, so we were kind of slamming to make sure we had kind of all our ducks in a row at the shop. I am working on a factory coffee release, which is quite good. That first shoot went well, but then we had an ice storm, and the weather had been crazy, and I had a couple of concept shoots that I wanted to play around with that involved people and being outside, and that couldn't happen, obviously. It was pretty chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
We've had down trees everywhere, and this pretty much stretches from Kalamazoo to Grand Rapids, just like almost an entire day and a half of just raining ice. Had like an inch or so of ice on the ground. I got the Sony 35mm G Master this week, and I gotta say, I'm not really trying to get that 50 right away. This thing is crushing it, and I just did a shoot, like I said, with these coffees. 35mm is so easy to self shoot you doing stuff. I struggle with the tightness of a 50, especially when I'm like brewing a coffee and things like that. I can basically one hand and do anything I need within, like, we call it our work space when we're like shooting. But this little box, it closely focuses enough that I can get like right up on like my pour or whatever I'm doing. If I'm working on, something that's not coffee related, it's so solid for tight, close workspace shots and wide establishing shots that, as somebody who self shoots all the time, so crucial.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you taken it outside to do any kind of testing with it at all?
I did. I took some shots of like the ice on the trees because literally everything was glazed with ice, and I just wanted to see how bad like CA could get.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, and things like it's remarkable. Especially compared to the last 35mm I had was the Sigma HSM. I was shooting, relatively backlit through icy, like dead branches where like CA would be visible everywhere, right?
Oh yeah.
And totally fine. If you look at some of my coffee shots, they're shot between f1.4 and like I'd say 2.5 today. And I heavily backlit the carafe and stuff like that, and it's all glass, so you can see. I don't even think I have profile corrections on for those images, so Lightroom's not doing that much work to get rid of CA in those photos, and they're solid.
Good.
So
Fantastic.
yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. It's the thing that got me really though is how fast the hypersonic motors are. Or are they hypersonic? No, that's the old lenses. The linear, whatever the hell, the new fast ones. Because Miller at work, if you saw that photo set of those dogs, he was like going totally crazy with that frisbee, and I think I was probably only at like 1,000 ISO indoors and like relatively slow shutter, but it was locking onto his eye every single time, and like. So that's huge. Like, I don't think I got a missed shot from him shaking his head and
That's good.
doing stuff like that. So I'm super impressed.
And if it works in that scenario, it's going to work in just about every other scenario you put yourself in, based on what I've seen you've been posting lately anyway.
Yeah, it's gonna be fine. It's super sick. So
Good.
yeah,
Yeah.
I guess we'll see what happens. I have sent my 40 mil and another Tamron 17 to 70 I had to Adorama, and I believe my move is probably getting the 16 to 28 from Sigma, the contemporary. I'm shooting this on the 28 to 70, and I'm pretty happy with it. It's pretty great, but what I really like about the 16 to 28 is it internally zooms, and it'll be great on a gimbal. I really love 28 mil for walking around, so that's pretty solid for if I'm just like kind of traveling ish, and it vlogs and it does everything. So I can't see myself really desiring the 16 to 35 G Master when if I want to be at 35, I'm going to grab that prime. So
Good. Good. Well, that sounds great.
yeah, not bad. You may or may not have placed a pre-order.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And I preached like not doing that in the first couple episodes, but and if it was just like any other lens, I probably would be cool holding off. But I've told you before just how I have this like very fond memories of the old Sigma 50 on the Nikon mount, with the D850, in fact. And if the lens isn't going to hold up optically, the D850 of all Nikon cameras was going to show it, but it did. So I want that back. So I put a pre-order in on the 22nd. So the day before pre-orders were supposed to, no, the day before manufacturers began shipping. So before Sigma started sending them out. I haven't seen that update yet. So I don't think Adorama's got theirs yet. Because it still says pre-order, and it still today, as of right now, says that manufacturers are shipping them out. So hopefully in the next couple of days, I'll get an update. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too because like you're basically between your 20 and 80 for the most part, right? Or 20 and 85. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I absolutely need to be between, I bust out the 44M, the old, the manual focus, manual everything, and I have fun with it, but I can't do any professional work with it. I can't do anything relatively fast. I can do some product stuff basically, and that's cool. That's fine. And you get this very specific look, but sometimes you don't want that very specific look.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like a lot of what you'll do will be relegated to that 50 once you have it in your hand. So,
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm probably going to put down the 85 for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless you actually need reach because you have so much control over your environment for shooting your coffee products and stuff like that. But
yeah. The worst thing for me is the 85 can't. It's got a very the 85 FE18 has a pretty terrible close focus distance. Yeah. So I almost have to put it on a tripod unless because I often like to incorporate like me pouring, so like my hands are in the shot. So I basically have an arm's length to try to shoot, and with the 85 it's very difficult. So I've recently been putting it on a tripod, and that's okay. But with the 50, I shouldn't have to do that. I'll be excited about that.
Yeah, I had, for what it's worth, I have had really good luck with those Mikey autofocusing macro rings.
Yep. I've been using them too.
Oh, word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just makes the depth of field a lot more shallow, so it can be a little more tricky to nail it.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I had the shortest one on my 85 often because of that purpose.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool. I'm excited. I still think at minimum I want to rent the G Master 5014. And I'd
Yeah.
love to do a little shootout whenever you get yours because I'm obviously
Definitely.
still curious and I want to play with it.
Yes. I will
Um,
be too.
but there has been a couple of people that had me reconsidering the reason I would pick up a 50 over the 35 is if I had the one too. So peculiar.
Yeah.
We'll see because
Yeah.
I am who I am. So I like to mess around quite a bit.
Yeah, we'll see.
Um, but yeah,
So how soon do you think you're going to be itching to get that 16 to 28?
well, I'm gonna see what I get offered from the 40 and the 17 to 70, and when that goes through, I'm just gonna roll that right into a 16 to 28. So
Cool.
yeah, I know I'll use it for this angle like every weekend. But having not had anything that I can really use at arm's length, right now I literally only own the 35 and the 70 to 200. I went, oh yeah, I still kind of do some vloggy stuff, and I like having a wide. So, yeah, I'm gonna jump on it. I watched just about every video I could, comparing that to the 17 to 28 and the 16 to 35. And I used to own the 17 to 28 from Tamron,
Right.
a couple years ago, and it was fine, but I never really loved Tamron's build quality, and it doesn't instill a lot of confidence. And that's honestly so huge to me. And even these contemporaries are built like first party lenses. Like I love Sigma's build quality a ton.
Yeah, Sigma's come a long way in the last 10 years or so. I mean, I started shooting 10 years ago, and back then the Sigma lenses you'd buy, worse than kit lenses for sure, depending on your needs. And they were fun to learn on, but they were just so junky, like the old stuff.
I cut my teeth on the 17 to 50 millimeter f2.8. I ran it on a 7D Mark One, and I used it with a speed booster on a GH4 for a long time. And I mean, obviously noisy autofocus. I wasn't doing a whole lot of video autofocus anyway because I had a GH4. It had a really short focus throw that I got really used to. That you just kind of had to like, it had to be half a centimeter, and then it would be like most of the throw. But I shot my first short film on that lens. It basically like I preferred it to the 18 to 35 1.8 because it had a little bit more range and it had stabilization.
Wow.
So I ran that thing for a few years. My buddy now actually has, I can't remember if he has an 80D or a 90D. But he owns that Sigma and he still runs it.
Dude, two lenses that I've probably spent like a cumulative of like 2 or 3 years on. The first lens I ever bought that wasn't what came with the original camera I had way back, a Sony A55, A65 era. I believe I got the Sigma 70 to 300 macro, like type, just do it all with range. That thing was nuts. I mean, CA was awful. It was just an awful optical lens. The build quality was terrible. But man, when you're 18, 19 years old and you don't know what you're doing, you're just like, for the first time discovering photography, what a fun lens, right? Just macro, basically touching objects, focusing on them. I spent a lot of time with that. And then the Tokina 11 to 16 for Nikon, and they make them for different mounts, but Tokina, like we don't talk about Tokina much these days, but they're still making lenses. 11 to 16 has like a DX2 or something like that, 2.8 lens. So I spent so many nights doing astrophotography with that lens. It was just an awesome thing to learn on. And no, it's not going to hold up to the lenses that we use now. But I sold that lens only 3 years ago. And, if I still had a crop Nikon, I'd still happily use it.
Yeah. I mean, I used one as early as 2 years ago. The 11 to 16 is still, the 11 to 16, the 17 to 50 are still like commonly recommended from me when I have friends that are like, hey man, I found this like used D3200 and I'm looking to, it's like, yeah, man, those are game changers. You could basically buy both of those and get through your first photography gigs.
For not a lot of money, and
yeah.
they both have autofocus. I mean, you can do a lot with those lenses.
Yeah, I actually had that 70 to 300 as well. I had the Canon one. It came with my 70.
Yeah.
And I ran it a little bit on my GH4. I actually remember I had this like weird, all these gooses were in a field, and it was like my first wildlife thing ever. But my buddy gave me a drone track, and I put it over this like, the first time I was using like 180 FPS like footage of all these like, Canada gooses flying
Oh, yeah.
out of a freaking field. But horrible, nasty, disgusting lens, but
Yes.
but like you said, it was very fun, and it gave me something that nothing else did. I soon upgraded to Canon's decent 70 to 300 USM, but yeah,
Yeah.
good fun.
Good memories.
Hopping into news, which is something that I think I talked about enough recently that lets you know that I am rooting for this company and I need them to do well, is Sigma is freaking delivering their 1630 and 56 mil contemporary APS-C lenses to Nikon Z mount.
Yep.
Which is huge, which means their Z30 and their Z50 are super viable cameras now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
do you have any experience with those three lenses?
No, none.
So I recently had the 16 for my 6500, but I also ran the 30 mils at camp. I had boys camp and girls camp get one copy of the 30 mil to have a fast lens for when it's like nighttime and there's like campfires and stuff. They're fast, they're very sharp, they focus very well. That's a huge deal for the Nikon Z mount. I hope obviously that their art lenses and stuff go over to the full frame cameras, but huge leap for that system.
Oh, I lied. I did have the Sigma's Crop 31.4, but I like an idiot. Like people said, you could do this. You could run it on a full frame Nikon camera, on the Nikon mount. And I used to run it on the D810 and the D810 at the time, and it was just so terrible. But I cannot judge that lens on that body, but I can judge it when I use it on the D500. And I have never, ever, ever in my life had a worse chromatic aberration lens in my life. It was just so bad for the camera it was supposed to be on. And it's it's 20 megapixel camera. It's meant for like high speed and kind of pro-ish, and just such a terrible performing lens on that system. I don't know if my copy was bad. It was so horrible, I have to imagine that it was my copy.
Well, so that's a different design. The one for the F mount is a totally different design than the 31.4 for Micro Four Thirds and Sony, which
Sure,
is
okay.
it's so they're definitely different optically.
Different optics, okay.
I'm not surprised. So these are the DCDN
Yeah,
designs. Yours would have been the HSM,
sure.
which they're fully different.
Yeah.
I'm hella impressed with what those offer for the money. I think you can see those like 30 mils, the DCDN version for like $200 used, which is huge. Like that's like getting a 45 mil f1.4 for a crop sensor for $200, and it all day it works great. It has a little CA, but it's not. I can't imagine it's
Right.
the worst I've ever seen. Like you had described the HSM being.
Right.
I'm
And
not
for that price, you can take it, you know.
Oh yeah, totally. I'd actually be curious. I had to look it up because I wasn't sure they made an HSM version, and they definitely did. It looks like a stubby little 50 mil or something, but yeah. So I don't know. That's huge. In further Nikon news, the Z9 custom shutter sound.
I had no idea. This sounds awesome. What is going on here?
So I posted the link, and it'll be in the show notes. But there's a really long Japanese video, and they have timestamps for each of the sounds. So it has like, if you remember the Z9, because the Z9 has just a disgusting electronic only shutter, it's just this like super like weird sounding shutter. They added a DSR like shutter sound and a film like shutter sound that you can switch to. It's going to be happening soon as a firmware update, I believe.
In official, okay, so I didn't look at the article. I assumed this was some kind of weirdo mod. This is actually coming from Nikon.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And it sounds good. I'm
All
into it.
right.
Like the DSLR one is probably what I would go with if it was mine, but the film like one is it's a nice crispy little sound. And it is like, I mean, you had gone through your A7C's shutter sound exciting you from
Yeah,
that
yeah,
shoot.
yeah, yeah,
And I like it's small and maybe it's stupid, but having some kind of tactile response is important.
yeah.
I'm sure you turn off like your AF beep and stuff like I do
Yep,
as well. Like it's
yep.
disgusting, but I
Mm-hmm,
like I like to know, and having shot with models, they like to hear shutter sounds.
mm-hmm.
Because then they know when to change poses. It's more natural. There's a little bit more, you know, I've been on silent shutter and had a group of people where I'm like, all right, everybody smile, and it's not making noise, and they're like, did you take the photo?
But do you know why that's amazing for weddings? Is if they don't know when to stop smiling, I make sure I have at least one where everyone is smiling.
Oh yeah,
If they hear like 5 or 6 shots, then they have in their mind they stop smiling or whatever, and then I can't keep taking pictures. I have to like tell them, okay, reset, come back, start smiling again. If I don't have a shutter sound, they don't know when to stop smiling. So
yeah.
I just hold it down, get 10 or 20 shots, and I eventually get one.
That's totally fine.
Yeah,
I've definitely been there when it's just like friends and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
It's pretty nice.
With one model for sure, it's super helpful.
Oh yeah, because you don't want to obviously there's a ton of communication and shooting with a model is super collaborative, but being able to not direct them like, okay, change your pose, okay, change your pose. A good model will already just like know like, okay, you got that, hold on. And then they're looking for you to say maybe go back to that pose or stay in that position rather than they're gonna try shit, and it works out really
Yeah.
well. I love shooting with models. It's been a while, but um, really good models make days go really easily.
Hmm.
And then the Z8 sounds like it might be coming next month. Um, Nikon Philippines posted like a save the date like March
I
25th,
saw that.
and I'm super curious as to what this is going to look like. It sounds like Canon is going to be refreshing the R5 before making an R1, which makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like the A7R5 might have pushed some buttons, and people are like, oh shit, we need a flagship now that can that can compete.
Hmm.
So I'd like to see something in like the D850 slot for their mirrorless come out and just absolutely slam.
You're singing to the choir of all Nikon enthusiasts. This is what they've been waiting for.
Yeah, I think that'll be the change of tide for that company if they can really nail it. Solid 4K doesn't need to be crazy. Maybe 4K 60. I don't really want to see them push 8K, but if it's really that important, then I guess. But like, it usually ends up being more of a pain than it's worth on those
Yeah.
other cameras. I think they should just make a really solid 4K video camera that's still
Hmm.
mostly photo focused, and then they'll
Hmm.
probably get the right Nikon buyers to buy in.
Yep. And everyone who's not just going to buy it automatically is going to be looking at this very critically, especially in the autofocus realm. Everyone who's been talking about this is wanting the Z9's autofocus to come down
Yeah.
for the Z8. And I have to imagine that's going to be the case. Or some kind of redesigned autofocus that works as well as the Z8 or better. We can hope, right? But I'll be very curious, when this
Yeah.
comes out, see what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, with Sony's AI autofocus situation happening with the R5, I'm sorry, the Alpha R5,
Yeah.
I think it's pretty crucial that they kind of totally slam and make the camera, right? It's got to be kind of their non D6 style flagship. It's got to be everything that somebody who was an 850 shooter would want, and I hope they do it. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah, especially because anybody who loved the D850 like I did, they basically had the Z7 to fall onto. And for a couple of reasons, it's not the same. And of course, anybody who had a D850 and who didn't want a D5 or D6 because of the price didn't run out and buy a Z9 either. So they've been waiting patiently,
Yeah.
very patiently.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow, both size and price for something like the Z9, and then for it to not have a mechanical shutter, which like a lot of people that already were kind of iffy on going mirrorless are like, well, that's too much difference for me. Like, I
Right.
don't get a mirror or a shutter. Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty wild stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're right. I hope to see it start slamming, because that means the next generation of bodies across the board are going to be disgusting good. Because they have to be. Because now everybody is coming from the woodwork, both Nikon and
Right.
Panasonic, and everybody. It's going to be like all of them are back to the same plane again.
I feel like Sony is in now, like this, a very golden age of putting out some of these cameras, and that's only going to push everyone else to try and do a little bit better. They're not going to just sit, lay down and let Sony take all the sales. They have to innovate.
Yeah, dude, on Twitter, the amount of people I am seeing still asking. So I'm really nervous to switch to Sony, but like I've been thinking about finally doing it, and like people who I saw two at least this weekend. People who switch from Canon, like, do you miss it, or and you're like, nope, not at all. Send
Hmm.
it.
Right.
So it's pretty wild. Obviously, that's a really small, like, it's basically a creator community talking about it, but it's like
Yeah.
it's pretty intense. Speaking of innovation, the next one that really got me this week was Laowa is
Mm,
doing a 28 mil f1.2, manual focus only. Uh, but that's more in the realm of a really exciting both focal length and aperture for me. How do you feel about 28
wow.
mil?
I mean, it's fine. I used a 24 mil for a long time on Nikon. I liked it. I liked it a lot for astro and landscape, and it's a very versatile lens, even for a prime. For getting close. The one I had anyway was a close focus. It had a great close focus. It was relatively sharp. It could have been better. Um, this is interesting. Lao is always interesting. They've been interesting for a long time, making like these wild lens, the probe lens. I think everybody knows. So many YouTube channels that trying to do something different and funky use that probe lens, right? So
Sure.
the Laowa F1.2. I haven't looked at this article yet, so why don't you tell us a little bit more about it?
Well, I mean, nothing crazy other than the fact that it's a Laowa manual focus, full frame E mount, like $600. Uh, it looks like it's going to be for Z mount,
Wow,
L mount, and RF mount.
a six hundred
Um,
dollar F1.2.
yeah, well, I mean, fully manual, right? Like it's not like
Yeah,
there's AF and
yeah.
stuff, but it's probably going to have a decent amount of chromatic aberration and stuff like that. But it's a really fast 28 mil,
Who
and
knows though? Because Laowa's been in the news a lot. They've got some higher expectations, I think.
well, I mean, you're still going down super, super wide. Like even this article says high
Hmm.
CA wide open, which is like it's totally acceptable
Oh,
for
did I
me,
say that?
honestly.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like it's gonna happen. But I really like their zero distortion lenses. They make like a 12 and like a 9 for micro four thirds and stuff.
Sure.
I've ran some of those on like the GH5 when I was still running it. I like their glass. So again, I like that they're putting the precedence of a faster 28 mil out there. I flirt with the 28 f2 from Sony, but it's just such an old lens. Um, I'm I'm kind of a closeted Leica fanboy. Uh, and I have a buddy who is using a Q for a while, a Q2, and that 28 f1.7 on that camera, it feels like it can do no wrong. And then I've been running 28, with this all the way zoomed out for a while, and I really like the focal length.
Hmm.
24 is often a little too wide. But I think between 28 and 35, I can shoot like almost everything that I want, like from a day-to-day perspective in those two focal lengths, and so it's exciting. I just like that they're putting the precedence of having a 28 mil that's really fast, because I'd love to see an f1.4 or an f1.8 refresh from Sony.
Yeah, I mean it'd be interesting. An F1.2 surely must be fun to play with, so I would love to see this be released and see some images come out of that. It does look, I mean, it doesn't look too big at all. The weight is what, 600 grams, so on the heavier side, but not too bad.
Yeah, I mean if it's chunky and metal and
Yeah,
wide and also super wide open, it is what it is. But
it could be fun to use.
I
Yeah.
think I think it'd be sweet. I've been kind of playing around with my 37 mil f2.8 the last couple of days, and I think I'm still pretty into my manual focus lenses.
Hmm.
So maybe something to revisit, because $600 is pretty damn cheap these days for a lens.
For any lens, yeah, but we do have good options if you just want to have fun with manual focus lenses. You can get them for a lot cheaper. Laowa's not making anything super crazy here because it is $600, but you can get the 44M or whatever for less than $100, or at least you used to be able to. I haven't looked in a while.
Yeah. I would be surprised if the Laowa's not pretty sharp though, because they do.
Yeah.
And that's the only downside to using some of the older glass that I have, because I have a little Russian
Yes,
trifecta of old manual lenses, and they're just soft as hell.
they are. Mhm.
But that's a look, especially for video.
It is. Yeah.
Speaking of being a Leica fanboy, they did a Deluxe 7 Leica. They announced released this week, and it's basically like a 24 to 75 mil point and shoot Leica for less than $1,400.
Wow.
Yeah. They're making a 007 model, which I think is kind of goofy, but it's they're making exactly 1,962 of them, because it's for the 60th anniversary of the James Bond series. But that one's going to be like $2,000.
Even that seems cheap.
Yeah, but it's sweet because there's a lot of ZV-1 users. Everybody's going just totally crazy about the freaking X100V series from Fuji, and this is a Leica.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. Patrick Tommaso already, I can't remember if he was using the older Deluxe 6 or if he had the new 7, but he was taking mirror selfies with it and said, "This is why I bought a Leica this week." But I like this.
What does a 007 model mean? What is that supposed to look like?
It's just a fancy boy. It's like literally a commemorative like James Bond model.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't seem overly interesting to me, so I didn't
Do we have any pictures of that?
I don't have one in the link that I have. I just have
okay.
the link.
I see the black and silver.
They have photos of it. It's got like the rifled barrel on the front of the thing. It's all jet black. It's got 007 on it and stuff like that.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I have some friends that are super into James Bond, so like if you're one of those guys and maybe you have like an Omega Speedmaster and like this is like your vibe, I could see those, like there's sub 2,000 of them being made. Like they're gonna sell.
Not only that, but not even for non-camera enthusiasts, if you are a James Bond, like some of those types of memorabilia collectors are going to look at this and go, "Oh, $2,000 for something that they can resell." Obviously, I mean, if they're making less than 2,000 of them in the next few years, when they haven't been making them at all, they'll probably go for more than what they sold.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those collectible. It's memorabilia, and
It
it's
looks cool. Yeah.
It's one of the biggest IPs in history. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. I think it's sweet. I would like to see more things like that happen. Maybe if we get a full frame film camera from Nikon, they can make like the Jurassic Park 2 version. Because that's still, when I think of old Nikon film cameras, I still think of Vince Vaughn from The Lost World of Jurassic Park taking photos.
This is a micro four thirds sensor. Is that what I'm reading?
It's a 4/3 sensor.
4/3.
Yeah.
So that's not cropped, right?
Yeah, it's crop. It's just not. It's just not quite as small as micro 4/3.
Got it. Okay. Interesting.
It's a sharp little lens. I mean, a camera. It looks almost identical to like an X or an EX4, because it's got like the rangefinder look, but it's not a real rangefinder. It's all digital.
Right.
It's just got two knobs on top for shutter speed and exposure compensation.
Sure.
Cool. But yeah, a nice little 24 to 70, equivalent from 1.7 to 2.8 on the telephoto end. Aperture.
Right. I was trying to do that conversion in my head. Yeah, it doesn't look bad at all.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet for $1,400 when people are spending $2,000 on a freaking X100V. That's a pretty
Yeah.
sick little camera. I think this
Yeah,
is the right time for that type of thing.
this is interesting. It puts a Leica in a lot more people's hands that just, can't afford it because Leica's Leica. This is pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't
I
complain.
I've been flirting with the idea of getting like a proper point and shoot digital camera for travel and stuff like that. And this is in the wheelhouse. This could be fun. I'd like to see what you can pull out of the files and stuff like that. But
Right. Yeah.
um, yeah, pretty neat.
Cool.
And then I think the last article that I pulled this week is Sigma won't be making new lenses for Micro Four Thirds.
Yes, I did hear this. I read something. It seemed a little fishy the way that what I read
Oh.
sounded.
I don't know. This is an article on Petapixel just 2 days ago,
Let
and
me see if this is the same one.
it sounds like with the demand dipping for Micro Four Thirds, they're just not going to put energy into making new lenses for it.
Oh,
And-
yeah. Okay, this is different. All right.
And why I find this interesting is because there's like it's not rumored enough yet for me to talk about it here fully, but they're still talking about like what's a GH7 going to look like? Is this going to come with like phase detection autofocus from Panasonic, stuff like that? And this is the antithesis of that. If Sigma's like, nah, we're good, that's going to be kind of the primary third-party lens support for a Micro Four Thirds Panasonic.
Right.
I like Panasonic Leica glass fine. Like it's I liked the 24 to 70 equivalent. It's the 12 to 35, and I've shot the 35 to 100. They're fine lenses. Their primes are okay. Their 10 to 25 is pretty sick, but it's really big. Like it almost defeats the purpose of going Micro Four Thirds. A lot of people that were using them said because the GH6 is the same damn size as a full frame camera and nearing the prices of like a used A7 IV and things like that, it's a hard pill to swallow. So I don't want to see it die. I'm not really a Micro
Right.
Four Thirds user anymore, but
Mhm.
that's where I cut my teeth for video, and that's usually where interesting features that can't happen to full frame right away happen. So I don't know. It sets an interesting precedence for the next couple of years of technology.
Yeah, there's a quote in here too. I hope with the arrival of the new OM system cameras, demand will stabilize, but it is clearly tending to decrease for Sigma Micro Four Third lenses. It goes on. It sounds like it might not be totally written in stone. It might be something where they're looking at just slowing down and maybe not designing anything new, but watching the trends probably for the next year or two.
Yeah, but I mean, well, so what was interesting anyway is their Micro Four Thirds designs are just their APS-C designs, so
Yeah.
they're not translated perfectly because a 30 mil on a Micro Four Thirds sensor is a 60 mil, and the crop factor is 2x, so it's definitely a lot different than a APS-C. So I don't know, just interesting. Sigma's kind of like the first party, third party company, so.
Yeah. Hmm.
You kind of probably want their support if you're not, one of the big two who seem to not care.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. And with all this all these lenses that Sigma's putting out now, they're doing so well. With DGTN and these now new Nikon crop lenses, you'd think that they would be able to push sales for this if they did try to make them. I'm surprised this is coming now and not 2 or 3 years ago. You know what I mean? When they had a really good reason to cut back in areas where maybe they're not making enough money. So to sit back during the pandemic and now in 2023 make this assessment is a little bit of a head scratcher, because since then we've seen some pretty great glass come out of Sigma, and it's interesting.
I don't know that they were ready because like there's still a huge number of people, at least in like the gear like content creator space, using Micro Four Thirds during COVID. Like I think there was still a pretty heavy GH5 user. I think people like there's that one guy. I like name dropping as many YouTubers as I can, but I can't remember his name at the moment. The Everyday Dad or something like that. He was still running, I think, a whole Panasonic setup for a while. Yeah, I think that the GH6 just didn't pop off. I don't know anybody that's using it. I can't think of any major content creators doing it. That's not to say people aren't using it. There's definitely going to be people that have it if they were still sitting back with a GH5. But yeah, it's not good if the meta isn't to run Micro Four Thirds. It's going to be a hard sell. So
Right. Yeah. We'll
yeah,
see, I guess.
yeah, for sure. So moving forward, now that I don't know how it looks up there. Today we got a little bit of sun. I'm feeling like maybe spring is a little closer than it was during the ice storm. Uh, you think you got some opportunity to get out there and shoot this week?
I'm gonna try, and I keep saying that, but I really am. However, I do have some work ahead of me. The last farmers market that I was in, which was, the day before recording this podcast, I sold out of coffee, which has not happened to me before. And it's not like I brought the same amount of coffee I would in the middle of the summer, but I definitely brought about twice as much as I usually sell because we had some kind of event going on here in Boyne City, next town over, and it brought a lot more people than I thought nearby. And then they kind of filtered into our community building where our farmers market is on Saturdays, and tons of people bought coffee. And so I was talking to other vendors, and other vendors didn't seem to do as much better like I did, for whatever reason. So I sold out of coffee at like 11 a.m. and the market's usually done at like 12:30. I had somewhere between 15 and 20 bags of coffee, and I sold them all. And usually, like lately, it being February and nobody wants to go anywhere right now when it's 0 degrees or whatever, I'd sell 3, 4, 5 bags of coffee some days, which is okay to keep me going in the winter. But to sell out in late February was kind of like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I have some work ahead of me. I do want to get out. I would really, really like to put some more images on the A7 IV with the 150 to 600 to get a better understanding of how those firmware updates helped, because I only really got to test that one time. And then I'll probably also bring the A7C to use that lens on both cameras and see what the usability differences are and what the images off of it look like.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask if you had planned to run the 150 to 600 on the A7C. Not that it would always be the most, the first choice for you, but I imagine if you're out doing wildlife and it's pretty competent, you can use your A7 IV as like your video if you're doing some stuff out there, and then rock
Yeah.
the A7C taking some stills. Because it's I think the same speed, right? It'll still do 10 probably frames per second.
I believe you're right. And I do believe it's somewhere in between. It's an improvement over the A7 III's autofocus system, but not quite as good as the A7 IV. I think it would be competent. And the only reason why I think that's a viable approach is because the A7 IV has active stabilization where the A7C does not. So I can vlog very easily with the A7 IV for sure.
Yeah.
And do some photography with the A7C, yeah.
Yeah, right on.
So that's probably going to be in the works. I imagine I'll get out there pretty soon and try to do that.
Nice.
I need it.
Going back to another rumor that you reminded me of, I didn't put it in the doc, but it sounds like they're going to be releasing firmware update 2.0 for the A7 IV soon. And the only thing that is rumored about it right now is that it could potentially have focus stacking.
Yeah.
Which I'm into because I've been doing a little bit more macro stuff, and I think I'd probably benefit greatly from having that built into the camera, because doing it manually or with other software that I don't currently own is kind of a pain in the ass. But I am curious because does that just mean like the A1, the A7S III, and all these like they just are done? They're just not going to do anything with them?
Don't expect anything ever.
I'm only a little triggered as an A7S III user, but like imagine being an A1 user.
You have the right to be a lot triggered, actually.
I mean, I can be kind of upset about the A7S III, but like an A1 user should be seething, and
all
like,
you need is breathing comp. Like if you got that, it'd be, then they say we're done. You get breathing comp and we're done. I think most people with an A7S III would be very happy.
Yeah, well, and that's why I'm not that upset about it. But like, imagine not having that on a $6,000 camera.
Yeah. rough.
Imagine watching this like entry level full frame camera getting firmware updates after when was the A1 announced or released? Sony A1 release date was
17 or 18?
No, man, it was March 21. What are you talking about?
Oh
It's a new
wow.
camera, like
A1. Oh yeah, I'm thinking of the A9.
yeah, and it's a $6,500 camera.
That's so rough.
I can't even imagine owning that freaking camera and not having
there's
any of
bleeding edge technology, and then there's like abusing your guinea pigs, right? It's like, come on, man. You could push these software updates. We know you could.
that. No, it's pretty brutal, man.
Yeah.
Especially because I don't think they have. I can't remember if the A1 has. What do they call it? Whatever that focus assist is. I really like it. The focus mapping or whatever. I'm a huge fan of that. I use
A7 IV has that.
Yeah, I love it. I don't think that the A1 has it. It definitely doesn't have breathing comp, which I think is insane because
Yes, it is.
that's a much larger megapixel sensor. I could see them not doing it on a 12 megapixel sensor. That's why I'm not that upset that the A7S III doesn't have it. They could do it, and I will accept the crop. Please add it to the A7S III. But yeah, I'm so pissed for A1 users.
Yeah. There's yes, I agree. However, if all we know, and let's assume that basically there's focus stacking and let's say bug improvements and stability improvements, whatever they usually say. If it's basically just focus stacking, I'm not going to care. When I went from the D810 to the D850, one of the things I was so hyped about was this focus stacking feature in the D850, and I tried to use it once, and I was like, this is convoluted. I could have done my set of images much faster on my own without trying to do this. And I have. It's not a feature that I actually ended up liking at all. I used it one time and I was like, this is kind of dumb. I can't believe I was excited for this.
See, I would use it at work all the time for e-commerce product photography.
I'd love to see you use it.
Yeah.
I want to see some people using it professionally, but it's just not something that ever
like
was helpful for me.
Landscapes and stuff like that, I've never really been into the idea of it, but man,
Well, there's macro. Like, I used to do like flowers and things like that, getting up close. I tried it in those scenarios. And when things are when there's a lot of motion going on,
well, yeah,
it's just kind of funky.
That's,
I mean,
again,
even a light breeze,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's not at all what I like. It's a controlled environment tool for me.
Right, sure.
I was actually watching Peter McKinnon dropped a video just a few days ago. Him and his buddy were shooting a phase 1, and he was showing like his process of focus stacking on like a Rolex and blowing that thing up like super macro, incredible looking images. And I was like, see, I do like that. Like there's a certain level of like proper product, like white background stuff that if you focus stacked it, it's actually, game changing or whatever, because even setting up, like say I have like an optic mount with screws and the wrench and I just want to have all of that, it's so much easier. I shoot some of that at like f16 and it's not fully in focus, right? And it kind of looks janky, and then it makes kind of cutting out the image and making it look really clean for e-commerce more challenging. And I don't really want to sit there and do like a ton of Photoshop work. If I can get like 90-80% of that focus stacking to get most of that sharp, and all I got to do is use like Adobe's cloud subject detection, and I can get like almost there, my day is so much better, man.
Right.
So yeah. I'm super into that, and I have an A7 IV now. So
I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. If we get it, cool. For me, if it's going to be a 2.0, yes, that's a cool feature in theory for some people, especially like you said, controlled environments. I'll just be waiting, and when 2.0 releases, I would like to see a little bit more substance out of a 2.0. Yeah. I mean, what is it now? Like 1.2 or 1.3 or something like that? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway.
I don't know. I can tell you right now, if they add shutter angle to this camera and not the other ones, I'm going to sell all my Sony stuff and go to Panasonic. I literally have an A7 IV, so I would get it. I would still sell it out of principle and go buy 2 S5 IIs.
Yeah.
and I'd just be done. I'd be like, all right, bye, Sony, you sons of.
You have to imagine, like, what is the cost of putting a couple software engineers on this? Like, you've developed it and made it work for other cameras. These cameras aren't too different from one to another, you know?
The cost is lacking the manufactured obsolescence that they want, so you buy their next camera is the cost.
That sounds about right. That sounds, yes.
That's the cost.
I hear that.
There's been a couple of things lately that kind of triggered my brain, where like companies are really just in it for profits. And one of them was, I'm not going to get into it because I don't really care one way or the other. It's not an important topic for me, but a very famous book author is getting apparently a bunch of his books like redone. Like basically, like there's a lot of people on the right that would say the wokeness group is gonna like change these books to make them more like 2023 friendly.
Okay.
And there's just like a tweet. It was a very brief tweet. It wasn't that fiery or anything, but he was like, y'all do know that it has nothing to do with wokeness, right? And it's reselling these books that no one has cared about for like 20 years, and they're going to do it to get a bag. So like you being upset about it and you thinking it's this like huge social thing is silly. It is so a publishing company can make some money.
That's their job.
And I was like, yeah, you got these old books that are kicking around. If you gave them a refresh, they can sell them. They want you to buy their book. That's it. You can just not, and then not care, and then not give them publicity, which is also an option. Companies don't care about us.
No, you're right.
So it's fun anyway. I don't like artificial or manufactured obsolescence. I think it's annoying, and
it's the reason I don't buy a phone like once every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty crazy. I don't know why the support for like a certain system has to be, I don't know if they're trying to get there with cameras, like how phones are flipped like once a year. I hope that's not the case. I would rather have, a 5-year-old camera, a 6-year-old camera. But the way it's looking, it's shorter and shorter every year. So
yeah, I mean, I still think we're a couple years away from an A7S4, or at least I hope so. Maybe because I mean, without breathing comp, that's basically the only thing, or one of the major things keeping other people from selling their A7 III. Like, it's if people had that, they'd be so much happier with your A7S IIIs. So I'm hoping they're not deliberately not giving you that so that they put it in the. But we can assume that's the case, and that sucks.
Yeah. Well, and it's
been so long.
It's not a small feature. It's literally why they're allowing themselves to design their G Masters with so much breathing. Because it's easier to do. Like, obviously, it's easier to just have a very good optical photo lens that has breathing and then fix it with software.
Right.
But you're kind of just a POS if you withhold it from the other
You could do it easily.
Because it's like the reason why you're allowing it for the G Masters or whatever. Though the 50mm 1.4 is controlled pretty decently. I'll give them that.
Yeah, it's not terrible.
I mean, it's not like the 20 or the 35, right? Those are both pretty egregious. But yeah, I don't know. I still like my 7S III for the most part. I'm shooting on it today.
That's what they're banking on, right? So that you don't switch away. You still like it.
Well, I mean, yeah, not if they blow me off with this A7 IV. I'm telling you, I'm gonna get a Panasonic next month if if they add shutter angle and shit, or open gate to the A7 IV, but not the A1.
We'll see.
I almost want to see him do it because I want to see like everybody light Sony up on the internet.
I don't know
if they allow open gate on a A7 IV.
Or I've seen a couple people talking about like what other cameras that are still on the older menu system. Is it possible to update those cameras on the new menu system? And I don't know if it is, but man, everything that could potentially have it needs to have it. This new
Yeah.
menu system is just miles ahead.
Yeah.
That's not something I'm an expert in. I don't know if that's like compatible at all, but it is a huge improvement, and there's others like it that these newer cameras deserve, but not just the newer cameras. Like the most recent release of their video-centric camera, the A7S III.
Yeah.
Like, jeez,
Yeah.
it could go on and on.
I'm certainly comfortable with not like setting the precedence that they have to update the menu system on old cameras, even if it's possible. But other features that literally are firmware, like I don't know what the architecture would look like if like the processor's optimized for one thing or the other. Like that's cool.
Right.
Like whatever. The menu system is what it is. But when I know that you can do something like focus mapping on
Yeah.
my camera, and you could definitely put breathing comp in it because it's just digital cropping anyway. Like,
Yeah.
we can handle it. We can handle it. I'm already using active stabilization 90% of the time, so I'm already cropped in.
Right. Yeah.
I don't give a shit. Give it to me.
Speaking of active stab, I did use the A7C to do some video stuff, and without active stabilization, I did find a little bit of shakiness. And I remembered you recommended that Catalyst software. Was it Catalyst?
Yeah, Catalyst Bros.
Yeah. And man, what a difference that made. If you're listening and wondering why warp stabilization sucks so much, check out Sony's Catalyst software. Holy crap, what a difference that made.
Yeah, I wish the workflow was better. I cannot believe they charge as much as they do for the Premiere Pro like plugin for it, because they have the plugin, but you have to pay for it, which is ass.
What is the cost? Do you remember?
I can't remember. I think it was $99, but I think it was $99 a year.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Because if it was a one-time deal, I would probably have bought it. I'm pretty sure it was $99 a year. Don't
I mean,
quote
it's
me on
not
that,
awful. You open the software, render it out, and then throw the new clip in. But a plugin is great. That would be very convenient, but not for $100 a year. No way.
Yeah, like if I was, I don't know.
Even $100 standalone is quite a lot for a plugin when you have a free option otherwise.
Yeah, it's not great. It's less than ideal. I don't love the workflow of using Catalyst Browse. I wish it was more of an, because like I'm not gonna do that to all my clips, man. Like I'm just
no.
not.
I literally did it to one in that whole sequence, and I was like, this is fine for this use. But if I had like a 40-minute video and I needed to do this with a dozen clips, I would be real kind of frustrated with that.
It's not an option. It's not a solution to the fact that the IBIS is bad, right?
Right.
I don't know. But yeah, you're right. It's cool. I'm glad it was working out. I totally forgot that the A7C has it, which is sick. The gyro data.
Yeah, it worked out fine. It was really great. I'd prefer if it had active stab. A7C2. I'm looking at you. We'll see.
Hell yeah. That's all I got for this week.
All right.
Good chatting with you. Try to get out there this week. I'll be on your butt, even though you got a lot of coffee roasting to do.
Not a lot. I can get it all done in a day, so I need to just pick another day and get the hell out of the house.
Yeah, heck yeah. Right on. Well, I hope it happens. I hope we get some good weather. Maybe a nice, not too cold morning to go shoot some birds or something. I'd like to see what happens. So.
Yeah, me too. I'll make it happen.
Right on.
I'm promising before next episode, I will make this happen.
Love that.
Cool.
All right, if you're still listening, thanks a lot for sticking around. We'll talk to you next week. If you have any suggestions for us for things that you want to hear, to talk about, hit us up. Follow David and his coffee on Instagram. You can follow me if you want, but I mostly just make memes in my Instagram story, so it's not that important. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe and share some stuff, because I need it. We love you. With all of our heart.
We do. Drop a comment. What are you working on? Let's chat. And if you're listening, leave a review. Spotify, Apple Music, leave a review. We'd love to know what you think of the show.
All right. Till next time.
See you guys.